What if James K Polk ran for re-election in 1848? What would change history? 1848 U.S. election, James K Polk vs. Zachary Taylor. James K Polk wins the 1848 election, and then the Whig Party collapsed in 1850. The Compromise of 1850, does it still happen? The Compromise of 1850 doesn't happen. Nor the Fugitive Slave Act. James K. Polk's presidency. Prices get lower, but however, the country becomes more divided, getting more so month by month. Election of 1852. Pierce vs. Scott. Because of a bad Polk's presidency, as the country is so divided, Winfield Scott wins the 1852 election, becoming Polk's predecessor. 1856 U.S. election, Winfield Scott vs. James Buchanan. Winfield Scott wins re-election in 1856, narrowly defeating Buchanan. Election of 1860, James Buchanan vs. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln wins in a landslide, with receiving 222 electoral votes to Buchanan's 15. 1864 U.S. election, George B. McClellan vs. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln wins re-election with 160 electoral votes, barely over the 152 electoral vote threshold. After the U.S. Confederate States stays and vote for McClellan, it's a tough race. Is Abraham Lincoln assassinated in 1865? Lincoln is not assassinated in 1865. John Wilkes Booth does pull an assassination attempt on Lincoln, but Lincoln survives the assassination attempt in this alternate timeline. Reconstruction policies. What goes different? Reconstruction policies goes a lot different. And without Johnson, it seemed that whoever would be Lincoln's predecessor would have an easy time handling Reconstruction. Election of 1868. Ulysses S. Grant vs. Horace Greeley. Ulysses S. Grant wins the election in a landslide, with 219 electoral votes to Greeley's 14 electoral votes, after Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and Arkansas secede from the Union. The way Reconstruction goes. Grant handles Reconstruction very good. Reconstruction happens very good, and he remains extremely more popular heading into the election. Election of 1872. Ulysses S. Grant. After a good presidency, Ulysses S. Grant runs for re-election virtually unopposed, and Ulysses S. Grant receives all electoral votes, receiving all 366 electoral votes. But however, in this timeline, Grant handles Reconstruction very, very well, rather than bad, though his entire cabinet was extremely corrupt. Many people in his cabinet in this timeline are very corrupt, and thus it's not looking that good for the Republicans heading into 76. 1876 election, Rutherford B. Hayes vs. Winfield Scott Hancock. Winfield Scott Hancock wins with 299 electoral votes, and Hayes gets 158 in this timeline. Election of 1880. President Winfield Scott Hancock vs. James G. Blaine. Winfield Scott Hancock wins re-election, defeating James G. Blaine in the 1880 election. 1884 U.S. election. Grover Cleveland vs. James G. Blaine. James G. Blaine wins the election. After many people found out that Winfield Scott Hancock is corrupt in this timeline, many people decide to move on from the Democrats. Election of 1888. James G. Blaine vs. Thomas A. Hendricks. James G. Blaine wins re-election in 84. 1892 U.S. election. Benjamin Harrison vs. Grover Cleveland. Benjamin Harrison wins the election, continuing on Blaine's work. Election of 1892. Benjamin Harrison vs. David Hill vs. Theodore Roosevelt. After losing the Republican nomination, Theodore Roosevelt runs as an independent. Because of the Democratic split, Benjamin Harrison was able to win re-election. 1900 U.S. election. William McKinley vs. David Hill. William McKinley wins the election with 299 electoral votes. Thanks for watching.